Here is the Truetone battery-powered tube-type radio. I've now got all the caps replaced, all the wiring replaced. I even had to replace the wiring in the IF transformers. Let's see if it'll focus here. This camera seemed to be better about focusing, maybe just due to the lighting. It's not. That seems to be pretty decent. I've got all the new wiring in it, and I've got it hooked up to the battery packs. It needs an A, a B, and a C battery. The A battery is the filament supply, and that's one 1.5 volt D cell. The B supply comes from 10 9-volt batteries in series. I just used one end of a 9-volt battery connector on each end of the composite battery. And then to provide the C supply for the output tube, I used a 9-volt battery with a resistor, or with a potentiometer. This isn't a good long-term solution because if we keep the battery hooked up to the pot like that, eventually it'll discharge. I think we need about 4.5 volts DC bias on the output tube, so that's what I've adjusted the pot to. And I just did this setup because I don't have any other battery connectors. I have to go out to Radio Shack sometime and get myself a couple of connectors, a 2 AA and a single AA, so I can get the bias voltage on there. This was a pretty, I mean, it wasn't a huge job, but it was a pretty big job. It was more work than the usual radio because I had to replace all of this wiring. And let's see if I can turn it over here and take a look at the top. Got all new wiring to the tube grid caps. And I've just got the speaker transformer hooked up with some alligator clip leads here. So let's turn it on. Let's see how quick it warms up.
In my word,
it warms up almost instantly. I mean, it's almost as quick as a transistor radio because these tubes don't have a separate cathode sleeve. They just use the filament directly, and therefore you require less filament power to heat them. You can barely see those tubes glowing. You can really only see it if you look at them in a completely dark room. But because you don't have to heat up a separate cathode, it takes less power and it warms up a lot quicker. And it really seems like it works good.
My word is no room among you. I tell you what I've seen in my Father's presence, then do what you've heard from the Father. That's very good advice for us too. And they answered, our Father.
We did pretty well. Do you know who applied for the job? No, I'm not kidding you. The chef of George Soros. No. What? Swear to you, not absolutely true. The person who is the chef for George Soros. 990-800-690-9490. McLovin? I have to be honest here. I'm a little nervous.
Might need to adjust the oscillator trimmer capacitor to bring in all the stations. I just gave it a quick IF alignment to boost the signal pickup on the strongest stations.
Congresswoman, who is again, all they're doing
it was working, but it was pretty weak when I first turned it on.
It's beyond mocking the Tea Party.
Just gave it a quick IF alignment.
The doctor is in. Let's program your tune to exit. How surprised are you what you accomplished this year?
Well, Dan, I'm very pleased, to come back to where I played. Came here to Philadelphia in 1973, and the team was 9-73 and was part of a turnaround. I mean, 4 years later, in 77, we were playing Portland in the NBA Finals. So I know what this city's all about. I know the passion and the love and the competitiveness that this city feels for all their sports teams. So to come back, last year obviously was a very difficult year here for the 76ers, and I felt they had some young talent, Dan, and I thought if we could just find the right spots for these guys, that we could find a way to...
And it's designed so that when the volume control is turned down all the way, it doesn't completely shut off the volume. That's so you don't end up leaving it on accidentally and running down the batteries. So now what I need to do is just get those other battery connectors for the bias voltage, and I can go ahead and put it back in the cabinet. I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of cabinet repair here. It's kind of fallen apart on this end, so I'll try and glue it back together there. But the kind of the neat thing is, I bet you this hasn't worked since the, I don't know, the 40s or so, maybe the 50s, because it had a plug for a combination A, B, and C battery, and probably when electricity from the power lines came about wherever this was used, they just put this up in the attic or something and didn't use it anymore. There's no signs that it was ever converted to 110 volt AC power. So I'll just use it with the batteries. I just think that's kind of a novelty to have the tube type radio running off of batteries. And I'll just probably put some zip ties on those and put them down in the bottom of the cabinet. It's got plenty of room for batteries in there. So the next thing I'll do, we'll get it all put back together, and then we can demonstrate the completed radio.